Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.
Hi Rogers, can I ask you something?
Shoot.
What does corruption mean?
Well, summarily, corruption is abuse of public power for personal gain or for the benefit of a group to which one owes allegiance. For example, when a public office is abused by an official accepting or soliciting a bribe. By the way, private people can be corrupt too, like bribing police officers to escape fines.
Okay. So exactly how does that concern me?
Well, do you pay taxes?
I guess, yeah. What does that have to do with this?
Everything. Because those taxes you pay are supposed to facilitate services you use, like water, electricity, roads construction, medicines in hospitals, name it.
Okay, that is much bigger than I thought. But it can be stopped, right?
Well, yes, it can. Although it may not be as easy as it sounds. And here is the reason why. Corruption roots are grounded in our country's social, political, economic, bureaucratic traditions and policies.
So, what has kept it going this long? I mean, why don't we stop it?
Well, the main reason why it has been here for so long is because institutions are weak, either as a result of poorly defined ethical standards of public service, weak administrative and financial systems, or ineffective watchdog agencies.
What can we do to stop it?
At a national level, we must focus on strengthening the independence and effectiveness of public institutions that fight corruption. At a personal level, we must commit to never giving a bribe.
I promise I'll never give a bribe.
Well, that's a great decision you have made. Me and you now have to spread this message to all our friends. If we all do our part, corruption will be no more.
This message is brought to you by Alternative Digitalk.
Go to the church, though.
Tawali man, what's up?
Man, can you imagine people just dump everywhere? Someone drinks water and throws the bottle wherever.
Come on, Rogers. What else do you expect people to do with an empty bottle?
Simanya now, recorder. Did you know that plastics take at least 450 years to decompose?
What? That's a long time.
Exactly. Because plastics are made out of a lightweight and flexible material that doesn't decompose easily. And plastics everywhere in the environment cause plastic pollution.
What is plastic pollution now?
It is the accumulation of plastic waste in the environment, like bottles, polythene bags, straws. All of these contribute to plastic pollution.
I have been using them without knowing their effect.
Yeah, a lot of people have. Plastics are a danger to the ecosystem, both on land and in water.
So how can we overcome this problem? Is there something we can do?
Oh yes, we can reduce by minimizing the use of plastics, reuse by repurposing them, or recycle by collecting and processing them into new products.
Everyone wants to change the world, but no one wants to change themselves for the world.
How about we change our habits for the world?
And it starts with me and you.
This message is brought to you by Alternative Digitalk. The Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.
Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Welcome to this edition of the Hotline Show. My name is Edgar Mathew Karuhanga. We are into the month that is May, and of course a lot of things are happening in the country today. One of the main focus of discussions that is going on are the increasing floods that we are seeing in neighboring Tanzania and Kenya that has claimed more than 300 people in total. And that's something that we continue to pray for them and we hope for the best. Now the question or the rhetoric is, in case this happened in Uganda today, what would we do? What would happen? What would be the bizarre effects? I've heard of a landslide that was happening in Bunyangabu. Sorry for those 2 people that lost their lives. That was yesterday but one, unfortunately. And I've just, there is a third one who also succumbed to these particular effects. So it's something that we should also maybe hint on as we start this particular show. But of course, nonetheless, we are back like every Monday, starting 7 to 9 p.m. We are always here having a conversation with Uganda. And of course, we have these conversations in order for you to make informed decisions, but also understand what is happening in your country and also love your country more, but also try your best to solve these particular issues we talk about here. It's not all about politics alone. but it's always pertinent that we talk about the issues that are affecting Ugandans. And of course, you can also contribute to this particular program. You can send us your message through Digital TV, that is on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all those particular social media platforms. You'll be able to send us a message, and we'll be reading your messages subsequently as we continue the program. Remember, you can also watch this particular program on YouTube. It's always there after we finish live streaming here. You can go, if in case you've missed a snippet, in case it was the network, feel free to just go and watch these particular videos so that you can understand and know what is happening in your country. I continue to thank all of you who tune in from as far as the Middle East. I have people who watch us from Dubai, Abu Dhabi, Qatar. I have Mr. Kamoga Franklin, who is in San Francisco, California. Thank you so much for always taking off your time and watching these particular videos. Like we have every Monday, Mr. Ochieno Joseph from the Uganda People's Congress. And of course, we are also joined by Mr. Charles Kazooba from the CAADS, or what you call the Center for African Affairs and Diplomatic Studies. He's the executive director right there, and he's also here. And later on, we shall be joined by Mr. Tumuhairwe Dennis, who is a founding member of the People Power Movement. And of course, I think right now he subscribes to that particular entity. So we shall be talking about the balance of power, or the concept or the doctrine of balance of power. Do we see it today? There is the executive, there is the judiciary, we also have the legislature. But these days we're seeing, without reasonable doubt and based on the evidence, that one arm of government has taken over all the other arms of government. And of course, we have the executive being led by the president and the cabinet, making most of the decisions for Ugandans. Where does this leave the legislators? Where does this leave the Chief Justice and the judiciary? And of course, how can we bring back that harmony in these particular entities? So that is going to be the topic of discussion today. But allow me welcome the guests for the day. I'll start with Mr. Ochieno Joseph from UPC. Sir, you're welcome, and it's always an honor having you right here, sir.
Always a pleasure rushing here on Monday. If I don't set off from my other end of Kampala before 4 o'clock, I have to jump on a bike.
Okay.
But I have to leave very early because of the Kampala mess. But it's always a pleasure to be here.
Right.
And as of today, yes, you're raising big issues. I just want to say that, unfortunately, you're talking about balance of power amongst the three arms of government, but really there are really 5. But let people stay tuned. I'll tell them what the other 2 are.
Exactly. Some are unwritten. We actually have the 4th estate ourselves.
I've got the 5th.
So,
yeah,
so we shall also talk about that.
Yes.
But thank you so much.
Pleasure,
And,
pleasure.
I was just to add it on that
Yes.
you coming here is not only an event, so we appreciate the things you do and the time you invest to come here. So thank you so much.
Thank you. And so it was a pleasure seeing my colleague Charles and indeed all other guests with whom who normally join us here.
Yes.
And I know our good friend, Comrade Awish, will be very delighted for me to inform people that he's doing NRA's external duties, but he'll be here next week.
yes, that is it. He is, I think he's just jetted back from India, so he wasn't able to make it today. That is Honorable Paula Awich, who is the Director for NRM External Affairs. He wasn't able, or he's not able to make it today, but he'll be here next week. So feel free to tune in right now, but also he's tuned in, so thank you so much, Honorable, for watching. Let me come to you, Charles Kazooba. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you, Gerard.
Edgar, sorry.
Edgar, yes. You know, there's a Gerard Karuhanga.
Yes, exactly.
Very popular guy, eh?
Yes.
I'm happy to be here and having these discussions is very important for our country. Because some people don't like talking, reasoning, debating. They enjoy violence. And I'm a proponent of peace. So discussions can lead to peaceful coexistence. Last night, the whole night I was thinking about the sanctions against our Right Honorable Speaker, Among. And I was like, why are people even quarreling that she has been slapped with sanctions?
She's taking the cross for all Ugandans.
I was like, People should be complaining that more people should be sanctioned. We wanted a list of around 100 people from cabinet, from parliament, and not just sanctions, but even be indicted. So that you don't even move outside of the country. If you go to Turkey, they grab you from there. You go to South Sudan, they grab you from there. Then probably we can have sanity within the governance of our country. Because our leaders are taking Ugandans for granted. They don't care. They exploit citizens, and now citizens have been pushed so hard against the wall. Maybe in future there might be a retaliation in some form, but citizens have been pushed so hard.
Mr. Kazooba, thank you so much. Every time we start, you always bring out a snippet of what we are going to talk about. We are going to hint on that maybe later on. But that's a very pertinent issue right about now. Let me welcome Mr. Tumuhairwe Dennis from the People Power Movement, or one of the founding members for the People Power Movement. Sir, you're welcome, and we are delighted to have you today on the show.
Thank you so much. Good evening, viewers. Good evening, comrades. I'm very delighted to join the team. I am very honored to be part of the discussants with a senior comrade. In the name of Joseph Ochieno, the renowned Joseph Ochieno, the one and only. I'm very humbled. And Comrade Charles, I'm happy to be here. Like everyone else in this country, we live in the same country. What we all go through, we share the same pain as Ugandans. So there are few people really who are gaining from in Uganda who can tell they are okay, but most of the Ugandans out there will tell you things are not okay. And it is a resultant of the almost 40-year rule. Of course, people will argue even the past regimes, things were not very good, but after sacrifices that people went through, we thought that the bloodshed, the millions of lives lost, we want to forgive the first regimes after independence because they were trying out. After getting rid of the colonialists, we thought maybe these are young men, they did not know. Now after all those years, these guys were even in those governments. They saw the errors of their predecessors. They had chance to make things right. Unfortunately, they have really let Ugandans down, even after shedding a lot of blood. Wow. It's such a disaster that this is Uganda we have to talk about at the moment.
So record that 500,000 Ugandans lost their lives in that particular struggle that you're talking about. But let me ask you about People Power Movement. Is the organization still relevant, really? Do you subscribe to the National Unity Platform? Is People Power still something? I don't know. Where do you guys stand as People Power Movement?
The People's Power Movement has been misconstrued or misunderstood. It simply meant the movement of Ugandans, all Ugandans. When we were formulating the People Power Movement, it did not have a political ideology. It involved everybody else. People from different denominations, from different political backgrounds, all the marginalized. Even in NRM, we looked at everybody. So it was the people's, as plain as you hear it, people power. So it was about the marginalized people in society out there coming together to get rid of the status quo and forwarding, coming together to change the government, the status quo. Unfortunately, we had issues, and some selfish individuals were contaminated the whole idea and turned it into a person's political party. And someone started saying people power, our power, NUP, everywhere. No, those things cannot move together. People power is different from movement. I believe people power is in DP, people power is in UPC, people power is, even in NRM, there are those Ugandans out there in NRM who do not actually agree with some of the ideologies or some of the things the government does, but they are somehow conscripted for some reasons, either ignorance or otherwise, to the NRM. So someone who understands that there is a problem in this country and wants change and sees the plight of Ugandans is the people power. Now, about NUP, that's a different arrangement altogether.
But the people power got, lastly, sorry for putting you on the spot, but
Yes.
the people power got its momentum from Kyagulanyi, Bobi Wine. He is now having a political party of his own and also finding a way of taking power in this country. How do you stay relevant as the people power? Because now, who is there? Is it only Dennis Tumuhairwe?
The people's power is for mobilizing Ugandans, all Ugandans, from UPC, from DP, from NRM, from JMA, from everywhere. Those who think you have been governed poorly. The governance question is not good, and all the things you see, the corruption, the lack of services, the bad roads, everything. So, I want you to separate people power from Kyagulanyi, number one. Bobi Wine was an artist. One of the best artists in Uganda, earning his money and sleeping well. He's not suffered, at least since his adulthood, because he's been an adult for over 20 years and he has been living a good life, really. I don't think he has endured the suffering of Ugandans. So, being a leader of a movement does not necessarily mean that we formulated around him. They were the ideas of the people that he expounded. Now, when you selfishly choose to twist and make a political party and now make your own cocoon, leaving out those who are in FDC, because really everybody knows that People Power was founded by people from FDC. Some of them, when we were there, were in Chadondo with the Honorable Kasozi. Ibrahim Kasozi, we were in Chadondo with him. We were in Chadondo with the Honorable Sajali Abene.
Sajali Abene.
Sajali Abene. We were in Chadondo with some guys. We were in Chadondo with the members of the UYD, Democratic Party. So when we were formulating People Power in Bujiri, we were with the JEMA. Now when you form NUP, where have you left JEMA? Have you kicked JEMA out of People Power? What is People Power, by the way? So that is there is a whole confusion that somebody hijacked the People Power and put it in his pocket.
The owner hijacked it.
It wasn't. It was the idea of all of us.
This country always revolves around individuals. Let's not hide in the black. When it was UPC, it was Obote. When it's NRA, it's M7'S. When it's FDC, it's Kizza.
And that's what I'm saying. UPC is different from People Power.
Yes, People Power is a pressure group.
Yes.
Okay, sir.
Yeah.
No, does the concept apply to UPC, because I will defend that. UPC is not about military, but I never was. Then you carry on.
Okay,
let me ask him something small.
Yeah, just a minute.
Because I remember Balan went and registered
People Power.
People Power. Is it the Electoral Commission or URSB? I don't know.
That's also different. You don't register the People Power. These are the people's power, the ideas. They don't belong to anybody.
You registered the what?
You cannot register. We don't have... The concept was, it was a pressure group that was supposed to unite all Ugandans. In an umbrella, come with your political party. We had no problem if Kyagulanyi has a right, really, to form a political party. It's okay. You have your political party, but you don't still tag onto People Power. Now, you let others, you let peoples of FDC, of NUP, of UPC, of DP, all converge below People Power and form a movement. We push. So you cannot now say, I am People Power, I am NUP. No.
Do you think Kyagulanyi...
So in effect, by the time he formed NUP, that was the death of the People Power he subscribed to. So he can no longer continue calling himself People Power. Kyagulanyi is no longer People Power. Now he is the president of the NUP.
Did he go on with the branding of People Power?
Yes, he continued.
Maybe
which is hypocritical
in my
very hypocritical.
Do you think Kyagulanyi and his team are ready to take power? Do you think Ugandans should trust the NUP as a deputy opposition party or a party that is a government that is in waiting?
You say, I really, I am a Ugandan, but Ugandans have the right to choose whom they want to lead them. However, we are trying to tell Ugandans that they should be wary of what they choose. Really, if we are trying to get rid of Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, as I mentioned earlier, that Museveni has proved to us that he did not learn anything from the past leaders. Really, he has proved to us that after somewhat, how many years, from 62 to 80 to about 20 years.
Essentially,
About 20 years. After 20 years of independence and him being around, he did not learn anything. And when he came, he just started from zero and destroyed everything. Okay. So we want a Uganda that will not have the same person with the same mentality as Museveni. So if at all NUP espouses some of the characteristics of the NRM, of Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, you see them in NUP, then it might not be the right vehicle to take us to the next
Okay.
step.
This is negative. I think let's just stop from... No, sir. Let's just... Because of time.
Edgar,
very important
to be
for the
fair,
country.
to be fair, I know you want to change that, but you've raised some important points that I think it would be fair for both of us to comment just very briefly. But carry on. Yeah. I think so. Yeah.
Number one, I appeal to Ugandans. We should develop a political system that we feel is the most suitable for us. And we should stop focusing on individuals. This business of Sijui, Museveni, Muhoozi, Bobi Wine, that is what is destroying this country and Africa.
Okay.
Because you might change an individual without interrogating the political system in place. Does it favor you as a country? Somebody might carry on. So we must come together as Ugandans, generate ideas. What best system is suitable for us?
Okay.
Yeah.
No problem.
So I just wanted to say that it's very interesting, but I think it's a topic that we need to come back to,
Yeah.
and it will be a topic not to put people power on the spot, nor would it be about putting my good friends in NUP on the spot. And I would feel actually quite uncomfortable discussing it, considering the fact that I'm a leader of a political organization and that Chagulanya and his team are. But the point raised is very important.
Yes, sir.
And coming from a founding member of the People Power movement, because I must say that I was very tickled, and there's no political organization in this country that has tickled me ever, by the way, except UPC. I was one of those few people who, even in exile, I was swayed to join movements, in many movements, and I always refused. I refused, but I was willing to work with others to support the big agenda. Now, when the People Power idea came up, I nearly got persuaded. I know I shared a platform with the People Power leaders. But most importantly, I want to say that some of my young members whom I had been supporting, indeed our young members whom we had been supporting, particularly abroad, many of them actually, just like, of course, people who went to FDC. But in People Power case, you could see people going genuinely thinking that, well, this is a collective, an apparent collective effort, which is cross-party. And my assurance and instructions were, in as long as it's a collective effort, which is cross-party, as my friend here is suggesting, is important. Now, that seemingly, unfortunately, is lost. But my point is linked to what Charles is saying, that wherever we are, whatever happens, it's extremely important that we Ugandans reach a stage in which political party leaders, because really the burden of responsibility lies with political party leaders across the strand, learn to engage with a conscious mission for a Uganda first, as the National Union of Students slogan those days used to be, the Uganda first. It's very important. Charles raises the thing about these political linkages. Yes, political ideologies are fine. For us in UPC, we're very lucky, we're very clear, and very resolved. When it comes to issues of national polity and to engage with Mr. Museveni and his time and period in government, if we do not review our selfish positions, we are going to make it harder, not only to cause the change we want, but I think to manage the change that we will almost certainly take. I have told this program, I know quickly, that when, and I'll take this as a mini swipe towards my friends again in FDC, but a swipe, a constructive conversation. For me, again, I was one of those people who believed that BSJ, almost like Chagulanyi and a wave, should really have in 1999, 2000, joined as either UPC or DP, but joined the then existing opposition and put the energy in the struggles against NR as it was. Had it happened like that, I absolutely am convinced that we would have already had the change, including my good friends like
sorry for interrupting you, but don't you think these leaders know this thing that you're talking about, that united we go forward? Why do you think that they deliberately, because I'm going to use the word deliberately, they deliberately continue to have these denominations, these factions, PPP, UPP, but you know the problem.
That's where my friends are crying, and maybe you're being, the journalist, saying that maybe, of course, they know you're answering yourself the question. And it's not surprising, and very unfortunate, again, I want to say this reluctantly, it's not surprising that sometimes we now have sometimes headlines where leaders of particular political organizations are questioned in terms of their integrity or their intentions in the country. This is a very sober, open conversation, to give you an answer. I'm not making any insinuations, but genuinely it's a serious issue. And so I've said that had those leaders rallied around the then established political parties, after all, political parties are about ideologies, values and ideologies, and DP is a progressive leftist political party, and DP is a relative progressive right political organization. Really, politics played in between the two. There was really no reason why my friends in FDC at the time could not have been comfortable with either of them. Now, of course, people normally say, oh, this one was a dictatorship and this one had particular records, things like that. No, political parties evolve. Leaders come and go. You know, Obote left UPC a long time ago, Samugera left DP a long time ago. The issue is where the kind of which political party you are going to lead amongst the traditions. I was telling some young Ugandans, last evening actually, I was talking to a group of young people, and I was telling that, look, the values of UPC 1952 as Uganda National Congress have never been more urgent. Has never been much more urgent. Okay. The desire for health, the desire for education, the desire for agricultural inputs, the desire for our rights to access to fair wages, the desire for sovereignty and independence in 1952 when we're being founded, it has never been much more relevant today. So ideologies don't get old, you basically evolve. And that's maybe a part of the lesson that we need to learn. And as I said, to do so, we will have to also learn a little bit of democracy, that once in a while you join UPC, maybe you're not a leader, but you run with it because of the people rather than the positions in the stake. But maybe those are the nuances.
Okay. Thank you so much. We shall have my producer draft up such a debate, and we shall bring the National Unity Platform and all other political factions to really talk about this particular issue. How best can the opposition forces work together to find a common solution for a common problem that all of them have. It's just 35 minutes past the top of the hour of 7. We are in the first hour of the Hotline Show. My name is Edgar Mathew Karuhanga. I'm still with Joseph, Charles, and Mr. Dennis right there, right here on the Hotline Show. So I'm going to come to you first. And how prepared are we for this flood issue? I'm bringing it because it's affecting Kenya. It's affecting Tanzania. It was not on the rundown, but it's something pertinent. And some of the places here we've seen in Bunyanga where 3 people lose their lives because of climate change. My question to you, Ochieno, from a global perspective really, looking at Uganda today, how best prepared are we in case such a thing happened here? Are we ready to face such a climate change catastrophe?
It's interesting, you brought the climate change element, and one of the observations I was making earlier about political parties and the future is invoking you, the young guys, and particularly predominantly your young audience, that no, we've got a national crisis, and we've got an African crisis, and we've got a global crisis, but particularly Africa as a continent, with the weakest in terms of leadership, the weakest in terms of infrastructure, and Uganda, which is basically a mess after 40 years, is a crisis. Do you know that there are reports that Karuma Bridge may be closed any moment from now?
Yes.
And when I saw that, I was at Karuma just a few weeks ago. And then I was saying that, look at this NRA guys. Every time we talk, people think it's just the Ochienos there, they go again. No, I can't understand Mr. Museveni, part of what Dennis is saying. I can't understand this guy's man after 40 years. You know, there are some very basic common sensical things that you see. You see the other day when the road to Lokaya in Masaka Road was closed.
Katonga.
You know, point is, we don't have leaders, we don't have national planners, we don't have strategic thinkers, and I think we genuinely, and for you invoking the nationhood at the beginning of your programs, I'm not quite sure whether we have leaders who love this country. Uganda's, this is our own country. How you can say love your father, love your mother, love your children. You know, I'm not quite sure. No, but you say love your father. Of course, your father. You know, why must you hate him? Unless it's a tricky one who steals mabatis and comes home and boasts.
If they are forcing, that means there is a problem.
There must be a problem. You know, so quite clearly love your children. You know, I've got a friend of mine who told me that her husband was rather rude and crude after booze. And she was saying, but Joseph, but he loves his children. I told her that, how dare you tell me this, my good friend? He loves his children as if it's a conditional thing. No. If you see the manner in which you responded to disasters in this country, you just want to pray, meaning that the national theme that we gave you from Mwiri, that Botes gave you guys for God and our country, you know, took it from Mwiri, Kurakatonda, Negwanga, Ruafe, and then we just turned it for God and my country in English, one person. We just need to pray that we don't get many of these these major things in Uganda. Because genuinely, and to be fair, there is no official NRA representative here as a state person, so they will say so, that we're having this capsule in absence of a member of somebody from government. No, I'm not quite sure if we are, because taking from the experience that we've had, I'm not quite sure, number one. Number two, I've attended 5 funerals in the last possibly 14 days. You know, of them, 4 of them from preventable situations. This is, so meaning that you can't go down to Nalukulongo or Namuwongo and go to a local health facility and report with malaria, be seen, be tested, and be given medicine, and you go home. You can't.
Yeah.
There is none. Comrade Museveni, you know that. There's none. There's none. So that is for basic malaria, basic headache. What about emergency responses in terms of the disasters? I'm just praying that we don't have this. So I'm very confident we are not ready. But number 2, also then maybe we are beginning to ask more questions that younger Ugandans need to begin to join the people of Chikubo. That people pay taxes, but they don't see where the money will go. I had tea with a friend this evening who pays 1 million Uganda shillings in taxes. Granted, as a disclaimer, she thinks that part of that money goes to NSSF, but most of the others go to taxes. And she doesn't have a clue where the money go. My road, every time it rains, you see what happens. Today, when I left my home, there was no power.
Okay.
There's no power.
Yeah.
And I've said it again and again. So power goes off in the middle of the day, and there's no explanation, and it goes for 8 hours. When the road floods, the road gets blocked, and here in Kampala. And then the following day, when you find people doing road works, you find 8 miserable Africans plus 1 person, Chinese man with a kofia. And then you ask, where then are the Ugandan engineers? And this is an NRA state that has ruled this country for 40 years and claimed, I know Charles was nearly convinced that Museveni had a serious intention 40 years ago. No, I don't think these guys had it. They're not interested. So no, I just want to say that no, we pray it doesn't happen. But in any case, I'm not saying that there's absolutely nothing that can be done. NRA invoked the engineering division of their army to say that they will be responding to the street. Maybe they might do so, because I came from Nagongera last week, and Nagongera Road, we've been campaigning over it, and then we got stuck. But where we got stuck is directly opposite Rubonge Barracks. Our Tororo Barracks is side by side with the Nagongera Road, and we're stuck there. And guess what? Apparently Rubonge Barracks is now called an engineering brigade.
Okay, you mentioned something, and I'm going to come to Charles. The reactionness, because you realize, and based on evidence, because someone may say it's a bias, but it's evidence. The evidence we have, it has shown that The problem first happens and then we react to the
We
problem.
respond.
Do you think this reactionary mode of government or leadership can address a catastrophe such as that? Because if it's happening in Kenya, happening in Tanzania, it's just a matter of time. It can happen here.
Yes, yes.
How do we address that particular issue of floods?
Ugandans and to a large extent Africans, we survive by God's grace.
By chance.
Exactly.
Even during COVID.
Yes.
It's not that our governments were so efficient in handling the COVID pandemic. No, it is God that helped us go through that catastrophe. The same applies to environment issues. And like you've said, there's a missing gap. There's a missing link. We've focused on crisis management and appear to be comfortable with abandoning prevention. But also there is now a very interesting trend. African leaders, every time they go to international conferences, they are begging money to deal with environment issues.
Yeah.
But even the small things we can't handle.
The new kid on the block.
The small, so we should be suspicious. You want huge amounts of millions of dollars to put in place countermeasures. Seriously? I think before we reach there, let's start with the small things. How are we managing our resources? If we are building in road reserves, I mean
In wetlands.
in wetlands, what action can be taken? I was, a few years ago, I met somebody, a commissioner at the Ministry of Water and Environment. That person told me they were supposed to demolish hundreds of houses, I think from that northern bypass, as you're going to Nasan, that whole stretch. Then also this side, the Munyonyo side. You know, even somebody has reclaimed the part of the lake, and we've
Yes.
looked the other way.
All of us are keeping quiet, like we're not seeing it.
I think we've actually contributed to the reclaiming officially.
In
But
fact, yes. When you say that, that's also true. Because we are
problem-
funding somewhere.
The problem again goes back to our original challenge:
Leadership.
corruption.
Corruption, leadership.
We are a corrupt state. So everything we do, it is for personal gain. You cannot manage these climate change issues unless your planning is strategic, unless you are proactive in doing things. Otherwise, we are going to keep like this. And you see the same is happening even in other areas like Sudan. Because we don't have good planners, we are not managing our resources efficiently, we are bad people.
Is there goodwill? Is there a goodwill from the government in terms of addressing these particular climate issues, apart from the corruption? But is there the will?
I've seen the president move around, speak about environment today, environment the other day, environment. But it is his people doing these things. His people, he's aware. They've cut down forests because they are stealing timber. This Lake Victoria, you go and see what is happening. This is people, and it's not, let me tell you one thing. President M7'S is the most informed Ugandan.
Yeah.
He's informed on each and everything in this country. So we cannot pretend that he doesn't know. He knows. But like I told you, the system he built, his foundation of patronage, which spreads into coercion and compromise, leading to corruption. You can't survive it.
So it's taking him down, or he's gaining from it?
My view is that he's surviving as long as he can see another day.
Yeah.
Yes, somebody else will come and sort these things out, but he's just surviving.
Okay, thank you so much. Let me come to you, Dennis. Now, when it rains in Uganda here, you can tell me 30 minutes of just intensive rain. Everywhere is flooding.
Yes.
You go to Lugogo, it's flooding. Kabalagala, it's flooding. Everywhere it's flooding. Now, hypothetically, if it went on for a week,
Yes.
where are we as a country?
Now, I want to agree with Comrade Ochieno here that we don't have planners in this country.
No, the planners are there. They are there.
As we earlier said, you see, you have to show. You have to show that they are planners. As we earlier said, that after 40 years, there should be something, at least tangible, you can put your hands to. Because these things, we talk about them every time, every now and then. They are not new. These things, you've seen flood in Kasese, you've seen the Bududa landslides, and when it rains again, you know there is going to be a real currency. Ugandans, we have been designed in the way that the leadership, because the reason we entrust, we could all be leaders, but the reason there is a government is to take care of us. To plan, it has the resources, it collects taxes to manage the government, the whole government of the what, or the governance issues. So it has to plan for its people, the welfare, and so forth and so forth. So, if a government, if the leaders do not do the necessary planning, then they are culpable and really should account. As earlier said, we all know what has been happening in this country, what has happened in different regions, but the government has to wait for disasters to fall. My only plea to Ugandans is that, as we used to say, the word kwebe deramu, you know what it means? Is you are on your own. We are on our own. And I've seen the FDC on its own trying to do these campaigns of planting trees. Even at funerals, they go every funeral and what. At one time, the Kabaka of Uganda also has had a campaign of planting trees deliberate. What has the government done deliberately? Giving away forests. When you go to Mavira, last time we had but now the whole back part now is finished.
That's right, yes.
So they say.
The trees are on the road like this, but it was a thick forest. And all the wetlands have been given away for forest for industries. You hear, so really, where is the water going to
pass?
To pass. So when you have demolished everything.
But really, okay, Dennis, you bring this to the government, but to what extent are the people? Because the issue you say is the people building, cutting down these things, building in these wetlands. So to what extent
that's
are
the
you?
point. That's the point. I've told you the reason we have a government.
If you don't mind, yes.
That's the reason we have a government. A government has to plan. Comrade Charles said you have planners. Then what the planners are doing? The planners should be able to sell you this area and this area is not for gold. It's not what? It's not shouldn't be accessed because of A, B, C, D. So if the planners were there in the country, people would not be in anywhere encroaching on any of those sites. Secondly, you find businessmen, you find investors, pseudo investors in the names of Chinese other nationals coming, and somebody is asking to start harvesting sand from then the whole place gets demolished, and then where are the planners really?
And so where's the government?
Where's the government? So
yes.
the reason we have a government is to know these things. because they have the resources.
To know and manage. In fact, we pay them to do so.
To run the country.
You know, that's precisely.
They must run the country. They are not running the country.
Yeah.
So really, you don't blame a Ugandan. The Ugandan doesn't have a jail, doesn't have a gun, doesn't have anything. When the government is serious, nobody will encroach on anything.
But has it never done?
And if you don't mind, actually, the average Ugandan generally doesn't know, and particularly Ugandan of your generation, you know, who've grown up without many of these regulations. Some people generally don't know. To tell you the truth, many people generally don't know that because I don't have firewood, this firewood I'm cutting, is to feed me, granted, but it's got an impact. Most people don't know that.
Yeah.
Don't think like that. I was just being brief because I knew I'd gone much earlier. If you don't mind, just to complement that, you know. When I talked about electricity, I talk about electricity in Kampala. In Nagongera, I'm still fighting to bring electricity to my own home. And I decided to protest by not bringing electricity to myself, so that would bring the electricity to the neighborhood and the rest of the neighboring sub-counties. But power has been there all this other time, meaning it's common sense, including rural electrification. I know another NRM minister who apparently took power all the way up to including to the swamps in her village in some particular constituency somewhere. The corruption thing we were trying to talk about. So these guys don't know that part of why actually even they got, because some of the rural electrification thing was money from our so-called donors that when it's convenient, we call them imperialists. The idea was that provide electricity, you're saving the environment. These guys don't think, they don't know that by providing cheap hydroelectric power, which we do have, or in this case solar power, if we do have, people use that instead of I've just told, because you'll be abusing the people in Nagongera, the best word I'm just telling you.
But there should be maybe a sub-county near Nagongera that has power.
No, of course, yes. Yeah. Oh, is that good enough? It's just like we were saying, because there's northern bypass there, then our roads. Sorry. So power, cutting down trees around villages, and so therefore many of these are the gardening and digging things. The building on wetlands across Kampala, including some other road I don't want to mention. At least the other day we mentioned it, and now they're doing some work down there. You know, you find these wetlands being controlled and protected, construction site, by soldiers. You know, so it's an open thing in the streets of Kampala now. Where hold the Ugandans responsible? Take you back to it's true that people see these things, but people like you and me, except for me, because me I challenge it. Yes. Except for me, people go and see these things happening and they walk away as business as usual. Exactly. No, people need to be challenging this. Ordinary Uganda citizens need to be challenged, because in any case, what we're doing is not only the disaster of maybe this week coming. The biggest disaster, young man, is the disaster for your children and children's children.
So that's what I was trying to say, that so Ugandans must really know that the country is theirs for taking or losing. So if the government has failed to do their part, at least Ugandans should try to do their part. Don't risk your life. That's what I was
coming to. How do we address this issue? Because now he says it's systematic. And to some extent you can believe that the corruption in this country is systematic. How do you address this particular, as a Ugandan? We've seen a few come out, talk about the taxes. How do you think, how best can we address this particular issue?
The problem is, you see, my father used to say, why do you do wrong? Why do you do wrong when you know right? So most Ugandans know wrong, but they still go ahead and do it anyway. because somehow in their nature, that's how they are. Ugandans know what is wrong. Unfortunately, they continue and do what they're doing, but we try to really tell Ugandans that Museveni, or the people, some people are aware of, they might not be affected so much because they have gathered and really accumulated so much, and their future is actually guaranteed.
So they think. By the way, their futures are not guaranteed. You funny people who think you've gathered enough. No, your future is not guaranteed, because floods want to know you, thunderstorms want to know you,
Let me first finish. Yes, sir.
So for us, the common people, I talk for us, the common people, I think, us, the people power, as we wait for government to change, or for the right-thinking human beings to take charge of the country, what we should be doing right now is knowing the right thing and doing the right thing, not knowing right and doing wrong. So this degradation of the environment, we should plant trees and try to protect whatever space you are in, try to save that. Because I have the comrades are planting trees, the comrades are trying to really protect the environment here and there. And that is what personally as Ugandans at a macro level, I think we should do.
That's what you can
Yeah.
do as a normal Ugandan who's out there. 56 minutes past 7 p.m. I have a message from NRM Progressive Radicals. They say poor service deliberate overstay of our power is the reason as to why NRM Progressive Radical youths have decided to come forth and
Good
challenge
guys, come forth, come.
and challenge internal crisis
that is people
coupled
power now.
by dictatorship,
Yeah.
where our party chairman isn't challenged. Ladies and gentlemen, let's go for a short commercial break. When we come back, we're going to start on the issue of the observation of the doctrine of separation of powers. How does this work? Let's go for a break. When we come back in the second hour, we start from there.
Why did you want us to join with the NRA?
The Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.
Go to the church, though.
Tawali man, what's up?
Man, can you imagine people just dump everywhere? Someone drinks water and throws the bottle wherever.
Come on, Rogers. What else do you expect people to do with an empty bottle?
Simanya now, recorder. Did you know that plastics take at least 450 years to decompose?
What? That's a long time.
Exactly. Because plastics are made out of a lightweight and flexible material that doesn't decompose easily. And plastics everywhere in the environment cause plastic pollution.
What is plastic pollution now?
It is the accumulation of plastic waste in the environment, like bottles, polythene bags, straws. All of these contribute to plastic pollution.
I have been using them without knowing their effect.
Yeah, a lot of people have. Plastics are a danger to the ecosystem, both on land and in water.
So how can we overcome this problem? Is there something we can do?
Oh yes, we can reduce by minimizing the use of plastics, reuse by repurposing them, or recycle by collecting and processing them into new products.
Everyone wants to change the world, but no one wants to change themselves for the world.
How about we change our habits for the world?
And it starts with me and you.
This message is brought to you by Alternative Digitalk.
Are you craving for that special meal that will entice your taste buds and leave you with lasting, thrilling memories? Look no further. Spice Island Bulenga has got your answer. Natural, fresh and delicious juice, the best meals. Don't miss our daily specials from Monday to Sunday. Pizza Wednesday, Saturday Pizza Bonanza, you buy one and take two. Come dine with us and feel the experience. We are located at Prime Shopping Center in Bulenga, Mitiana Road. For inquiries, call us on 0704111720. Spice Island, we treat your cravings. Hi Rogers, can I ask you something?
Shoot.
What does corruption mean?
Well, summarily, corruption is abuse of public power for personal gain or for the benefit of a group to which one owes allegiance. For example, when a public office is abused by an official accepting or soliciting a bribe. By the way, private people can be corrupt too, like bribing police officers to escape fines.
Okay. So exactly how does that concern me?
Well, do you pay taxes?
I guess yeah. What does that have to do with this?
Everything. Because those taxes you pay are supposed to facilitate services you use, like water, electricity, roads construction, medicines in hospitals, name it.
Okay, that is much bigger than I thought. But it can be stopped, right?
Well, yes it can, although it may not be as easy as it sounds. And here is the reason why. Corruption roots are grounded in our country's social, political, economic, bureaucratic traditions and policies.
So, what has kept it going this long? I mean, why don't we stop it?
Well, the main reason why it has been here for so long is because institutions are weak, either as a result of poorly defined ethical standards of public service, weak administrative and financial systems, or ineffective watchdog agencies.
What can we do to stop it?
At a national level, we must focus on strengthening the independence and effectiveness of public institutions that fight corruption. At a personal level, we must commit to never giving a bribe.
I promise I'll never give a bribe.
Well, that's a great decision you have made. Me and you now have to spread this message to all our friends. If we all do our part, corruption will be no more.
This message is brought to you by Alternative Digitalk.
The Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, from that short commercial break. We are into the second and final hour of this particular show. And of course, I'm still with Ochieno Joseph from UPC, Charles Kazooba from the Center for African Diplomatic Studies, and of course, Tumuhairwe Dennis, who's coming in from the People Power movement. And of course, we're still talking about the balance of power and this particular issue of having three arms of government, but one taking over the other arms of government. We're not going to play around to say, do we have an equal system? Because it looks like one arm of government has taken over the decisions or is actually running the government. And many of these people have, many of these arms have actually been put aside. So how do we actually bring back sanity? And what does this really mean for a Ugandan out there? And I'll start with you, Mr. Ochieno, to just paint a picture for a Ugandan. What if one government or one arm of government takes over the rest of the government? And in this case, the executive being one of the most implementers of government policies and leaving behind what you may call the judiciary and the legislature. What does this mean and how does it really affect a Ugandan?
It becomes a dictatorship. And if it's an irresponsible and selfish dictatorship like NRA's, you see the mess we have. But if it is, I'm saying it guardedly, a conscious and visionary dictatorship, in quote, Rwanda, forgive me, quoted dictatorship, as Rwanda is suggested, you get a Kagame and you get a Rwanda, meaning a dictatorship that enforces and pushes things visionary in a particular direction. And sort of, by and large, things do happen. But things happen in line with what that dictatorship wants. In Rwanda's case, relative success. In Uganda's dictatorship case, as Charles suggested at the beginning of the conversation, you get the mess because Museveni knows the mess which is taking place and is basically, he's swimming in it. Uganda really has never had this separation of powers since 1985 July, when the UPC government was overthrown. And just likewise in the 70s in the means. Now in the meantime, we quite clearly knew Amin came, took over power, and ruled by decree, went on. And actually, if you see some of the things that Amin did, you would say that maybe if the flood was coming like now, we'd be saying that Amin was preparing his tanks to face the floods, that possibly things would happen, because actually there would be, this kind of things we talk about, drainage, electricity, would almost certainly would not happen. And I talk about Idi Amin, who overthrew my government, and Idi Amin who killed my members, including my member of parliament, a member of parliament, whose remains have not been found. I still find that Idi Amin, as a regime, you can't compare in these 9 years with Museveni's 40 years with the kind of privilege that it had. So dictatorship is what we have. So we do not have a democracy. But ideally then what would normally happen, back to your question, is that we would have an executive, meaning a president, and this is much more recent because Uganda actually did not have this powerful executive before. In the 60s we had a parliamentary system and then the embracing of a system in which the president was a president of a parliamentary system, so therefore equivalent to Prime Minister, British Prime Minister anyway. So that was by and large. There was still an executive, meaning an executive president, particularly after 1967. And the same with the 1980, 81, 85 government, where we had the executive and the judiciary and indeed the legislature, but you would say the executive was not direct elected. In this case now we have an executive which is allegedly direct elected, but really a bunch of the same gang. Mr. Museveni himself has told you openly that the parliament, what a parliament, he could do anything, he could do away with them, so it's basically his property. In which case, if that's the case, then we could as well pack our bags and go home if we think we are talking about any average, sensible balance, in this case particularly separation of powers between the legislature, the judiciary and the executive. Now, ideally, we should have 4 reasonable estates, ideally, which is normally, that includes yourselves, the 4th estate, meaning the media. The media being actually the next other checks and balance that observes what the excesses of the executive, the excesses of the judiciary, the excesses of the legislature. And you know what they do? They enable power, what I now call the fifth estate, meaning the people. I would suggest that in future, if I am going to retire in the next several years, once NRA goes and we do a few other things, I'm going to retire. But I hope to be able to do some writing and possibly even some postdoctoral work to suggest that actually we need to have the fifth arm of government, in which case the citizenry. And that maybe we need to be able to change this so that we have the first estate as the citizens, meaning power belongs to us, and then the next estate could then be whatever all those other ones. And then the fifth estate, in my opinion, then becomes the media, but not because we will put you last, but because then you become the observant of the three, plus the respondent on behalf of the citizenry. Now, when we do that, I believe then we shall have an executive.
But Michael, sorry for interrupting you, but then you paint a picture of the legislature where Ugandans should belong. You said it's being taken by President Museveni. The other alternative there would be the judiciary by the Chief Justice. To what extent has this judiciary worked to be the last resort? Because in ideal terms, the judiciary is the last resort for Uganda.
I'm not sure you got me.
It's just another question.
But I've recognized the three traditional arms,
yes,
and the fourth estate yourselves as the fourth. And I'm arguing for the fifth estate. And I'm arguing for it because we're having this conversation, particularly the mess in which Museveni has put this country, in which we have the executive that accounts to nobody. We have Mr. Museveni who cannot report to Parliament, but who instead instructs Parliament. If you have a state in which Parliament, whose speaker should be ideally the first amongst equals in there, usually elected by amongst themselves, parliamentarians say that who is going to be our moderator, and the person who's going to be our moderator is not a member of my party, necessarily, is not, even if they're a member of my party, they need to be someone who's usually senior, someone who's usually experienced, someone who's usually fair. I've said this during the speaker's elections again and again, I repeat it, usually fair, generous, almost like a mini parental body, but also somebody who's detailed in terms of critiquing many of these other things, somebody who's then also so tough, people to be the manager, the referee of the National Assembly. That person should be in the face of the legislators because this is our house. So ideally the door should be closed, But in this case, we have a parliament where the speaker is a directive from State House, or indeed in this case, State House, and this is the central executive of the NRA.
Yes.
It's just...
That's what I'm trying to ask you, that now, where does this leave Owinyi-Dolo? Because you've said that the development is taken.
You're sticking to...
Owinyi-Dolo and the judiciary, because now this is the last resort for Uganda.
We know. Unfortunately, it's not, because you putting Owinyi-Dolo on the spot. Owinyi-Dolo is, of course, head of the judiciary. Yes. The judiciary, holistically, the common knowledge is that, and common conversation, that the judiciary is, we have cadre judges. I personally have got a case, a judicial review. I personally have got a judicial review. I should be going to the bush by Dennis. Mobilize for me some no, I have a judicial review, a political party matter. Yeah, we should take 6 months. It has taken 4.5 years. Personally, Ochieno. Now, is that a judiciary that is there to arbitrate?
Let me come to Charles. Let me come to Charles. Allow me to come to Charles.
Yeah, sure.
Charles, let me come to you. He paints a picture of a reality that is gloomy for Uganda. The legislature has been compromised, for lack of a better word. Then the alternative seems to be also compromised because they are cadres. The Chief Justice was once a lawyer for the NRM. And most of these judges are appointed. These judges are appointed by the president himself. The speaker, you can say he always has the backing of the president, and we've seen the president come many times to sit there and see the people voting for the speakership race. Where does this leave Uganda?
First of all, let me first help our viewers to understand the concept of separation of powers.
Yes, sir.
Separation of powers is, in principle, three branches, executive, legislature, and judiciary. Now, those that conceptualized that idea say that if you are a member of one body, you should not belong to any other body, the other two.
Yeah.
Number two, no single body over the three should have overwhelming powers in the governance of a country. So none of the three should dominate
The other two.
the others. It means power must be shared between the three
And relatively balanced.
and balanced. Now, this concept is of course for a democracy.
Hypothetically, it should be working in a democracy.
It is meant to be
In reality.
implemented in a democracy.
Yes.
Together with the constitutionalism or rule of law, multipartyism, representative governance, blah, blah, blah. Now, what we have in this country is something that is that attempts to resemble that. We should also understand, but if we are to debate the status quo today, we should get into the mind of Mr. M7.
What is the mind?
For us to be able to diagnose the problems that we have. Mr. M7 was in the bush. He is not a Democrat per se. He believes in the architect of violence to acquire power. Now, when he came from the bush, you remember that he also acted as a speaker, the first parliament, NRC. So he was both president and a speaker.
Yes.
There was totally no separation of powers. But because of the pressure from these guys, the traditional opposition, UPC and DP, and from the donor communities, Mr. M7 yielded to pressure and conceded. He attempted to open space for other actors to get involved. But in his mind, he is akin to a supreme leader. He is superior to anyone else in the country.
He's the president.
You see, that is what I'm
He's the
telling you.
first citizen.
The mindset. You must first judge somebody's mindset. So that is his mindset. He is superior to everybody. So decision making cannot be by consensus. That we agree to do this. No. If he believes in something, he orders the others to execute that task. That means Parliament does not have to question his decision. That is the mindset, the mentality. So, even if you attempt to argue and want to make him a Democrat, he cannot, because his orientation is not for democracy. Now, if he were a Democrat, for instance, he would not have dominant power even within NRM. It should be the organs that have to be powerful, not the individual.
The central activity.
That is why you see most people criticizing Bobby Wine. So for an organization It is the institutions, the organs that must have the power, not the individual.
Okay.
Therefore, for a country like Uganda, our system is designed for individuals, not institutions, not systems, but individuals. So an individual, for instance, President Museveni, if he wanted a law in the parliament, it would have its way. Let me give you an example. The biotechnology law. Initially, the president agreed with it. It was passed by parliament. He refused to assent to it. I think thrice. It's there. Why? Because somebody went and convinced him that this might be a bad law. Now, in that process, the individual dominates the entire government infrastructure to his advantage, so that his agenda can get through.
But doesn't he do this constitutionally? Because it feels like the Constitution is the one that empowers him to have all those privileges and powers that you say.
I've told you, the people who designed this concept, they argued that if you are a member of one branch, you should not belong to another branch. We have ministers who are members of parliament, isn't it? Now, you have a military who are MPs, and you're told they are listening posts.
Exactly.
Don't you think if somebody, general, if 8 generals are members of parliament and they came in a hotly debated matter, they came with their ranks on and sat in the house, don't you think the mood would change? So do you really think they are there as listening post? Now, the executive undermines both parliament and the judiciary.
And the fourth estate.
In my argument,
You're sticking to the three,
to the three, but also you see the fourth estate now is has been eroded.
Complete. Okay.
It has turned into the citizenry, because now citizens directly demand accountability from government because of the technology. Now, you've also seen our speaker kneel down before our president. What does it mean to you? She is the head of one of
The arms of
government. And she says, without you, I'm done. So it implies that the role of parliament cannot be executed in a credible manner. Parliament is already compromised. 3, you have the chairman of NRM and also president of the country who will summon the NRM caucus members and instruct them on the agenda to be executed in the parliament. And because they are the majority, that is the real parliament.
The caucus.
The caucus.
Yeah.
Not the other one. The other one is for the people, isn't it? But the real parliament becomes the caucus. Because matters are presided over and concluded there. When they are taken to the floor of parliament, it is just for showbiz.
Wow. Wow. I don't know if you know the magnitude of the things you are saying, because that means a group of individuals are all corrupted, for lack of a better word, or they understand for them. And these are Ugandans, because these are representative of Uganda. I'm going to start from there. Let me come to him, to Dennis. they paint a picture of gloom all the way. This executive taking over these particular entities. But the thing is these guys are doing it, Mr. M7 is doing it legally. It feels like the constitution itself is empowering him to be that kind of leader.
Yeah, that is the problem. Now, I agree entirely with the submissions of Comrade Ochieno and Comrade Charles here. But you see, M7 did not give in, as you said. When he was pressured after he took over power, Charles argues that he gave in. No, he lied. What they call okusiba ekiwani. How do you call that? Eh? In English, how do you call that? Okusiba ekiwani.
Faking.
So, he faked. So, on the one hand, he was saying separation of powers. Executive, legislature, and judiciary.
Yes.
Then on the other hand, there was Article 98 and 99. Now, go to Article 98, which establishes the office of the president. Then go to Article 99. Now, 99 says the president is the head of government. The president is the commander-in-chief of the armed forces, and the president is the fountain of honor. Yes. Now, if you are the head of government, what is government? The government is the judiciary, is the executive, and it is the what? Legislature. The judiciary and legislature. So, the president is the head of all those.
So he's allowed.
He is the minister of finance.
Chief Minister of Finance.
Recently, the Chief Justice was and said, Mr. President, by the way, people don't know that you are the head of the judiciary. Now, the president heads all those institutions, and not just ceremoniously. No, he has deliberately made an effort to see to it, but that he appoints. The constitution is structured in a very funny way, that the president is the appointing authority of the judiciary, including the Chief Justice. Of course, names are forwarded for him from the Judicial Service Commission, which we have seen several occasions where he has rejected some names and taken over returned the names to the Judicial Service Commission and said, this one you have brought nowhere, send another one. The president. Now, if a Judicial Service Commission can recommend a person and you return them, so that means you also subsequently head the judiciary. The person you put there is only the person you trust and believe in. That is why, even in the cases of the nature at the level of the Supreme Court, especially the presidential elections petitions, you cannot lose. You cannot lose because the people who are there, he has appointed the Chief Justice. He has people who are elevated. I had a father, I had an uncle, my father's brother, elder brother, he died, was called Justice Amos Nomushuni. He was a Supreme Court judge. I remember at his swearing in, we went to State House. I'm like, now, a Supreme Court judge, you go to swear before the president again. Eh? So now, I thought, if it was a Supreme Court judge, he would swear before a Chief Justice.
Exactly.
But Supreme Court justices also have to be approved by the president.
Exactly.
Now, all of them. No, he heads the judiciary subsequently, effectively heads the judiciary, then he heads his executive. Now, about the speaker, you've heard all the stories about the speaker. Now, this all speaks to the capture we have been hearing about and you have been told about of President M7. I agree with Charles that M7's idea was him alone. He wants to be a sort of monarchist leader with supreme power unchallenged and nobody. He doesn't want to share. These things we call government that we inherited from the British when they left here. And they told you, now this is how you're going to govern yourselves. There will be a leader here, then you co-govern with Ochieno. Is going to let him govern this and you take the country together. No, that's not in M7's DNA. For him, he's a supreme ruler. These ones are all fake. He has sold us hot air. He sold Ugandans hot air in the constitution. the whole document is fake.
Because that's what I was going to say. So
Yes, it has no meaning. The whole document is a fake. It's like a coat he wears, like or a trouser. When it's not fitting, he goes to the tailor, they untear here, then they fix to fit him. That is how he has moved with this constitution from the time they came in 95, then they amended in 2006, I think. Then here recently they amended.
2017.
They've removed everything. So what was the purpose of the constitution in the first place? So all these things we see, we are just escorting a dictator.
Is there a hope for change, or we just have to wait for President?
There cannot be hope for change in this current system, because the whole system is dead. Wow. We have to get rid of the head is rotten. The head is rotten, because I've told you the DNA of the leader is in such a way that for him, he is supreme to everybody. And he put in the constitution, and I find people saying, how can you be fountain? What does fountain of honor mean? What does that mean? I'm trying to find out. Fountain of honor. So everything emanates from him. All honor and prestige emanates from him. Unlimited. Okay? He gets unlimited, unchecked power. Then he goes, the appointments the president does themselves, when on his hand, are just so amazing. So really, my point is...
Can Ugandans really check the president? Because when I ask that, on social media, in the parliamentary exhibition, we saw Ugandans trying to check parliament. And then Mr. Museveni came out to defend the person who everybody was talking about, who was the person whose accusation had been raised about them. And President Museveni protected them. What does this really also speak about?
All those are just symptoms. The real problem is at the top.
So Ugandans can't check anything?
No, the Ugandans have to remove Museveni.
Okay, that's the
problem is at the top. These other ones, because as we have already discussed, that he lacks the will and the resolve to govern this country. Okay. He has failed terribly to govern the country. So really, he has no business. And who defending on what? Where has he done right? That he earns him the right now to tell us that now this is wrong, this is right, because everything is a mess. Okay. Really.
Let me come to Ochieno. Yeah. Ochieno, let me talk about the check-ins here.
But did you get Dennis?
I have got his submission very, very well, and he paints a very good picture from the evolution to where we are today. What I want for me is the check-ins. We're seeing white governments coming, or the Europeans coming to sanction these leaders, trying to check in, to bring back what we call accountability for Ugandans, on behalf of Ugandans, for them. What else can Ugandans do apart from relying on Europeans to come and be the ones to check these particular people? But also, you can also comment on the fact that he first dismissed these, let me talk about the Mabati saga itself. He dismissed these ministers that we had. Is there a sense of goodwill when you say these things? And of course, how different can we check in apart from relying on the UK and the sanctions? And
it would be very, it would be very unfortunate if there's some Ugandans who are relying on the UK to get rid of Museveni, what you call these Europeans. I spent the last 33 very active, very healthy, very ripe prime periods of my life, campaigning around this, and with and amongst and around the Europeans and the members of the Global North. And I can confirm to you, like Ubote said officially, that Mr. Museveni is their Nyampala. So if Mr. Museveni is their Nyampala, then Ugandans, the sooner you woke up, the better. But it's interesting what Dennis is saying about this fountain owner thing, that actually for people who are radically religious, in both the in fact Christian and possibly the Islamic faiths, it's almost close to blasphemous. Yes. So in any case, I think it had never invoked my insight like it has today. And so particularly for those bishops and their others who adore Mr. Museveni for whatever reason, maybe there is a case here to review and have started a conversation of reviewing this title fountain of honor. Honor In other words, every other time if you say it in my name, they're invoking my Jesus. And I'm not joking about it. By that, this is a very, very, very important point. The consolation, though, is that I've never believed on this NRA constitution. And you know, I call it NRA constitution. Because indeed, the 1995 NRA constitution was a Museveni's thing anyway. So every other time we talk about Museveni, lest we forget. 1995 constitution, NRA constitution, absolutely not necessary. It was not a necessary document because if you look at what it is today, it's worse than the 1967 constitution. Definitely, it's a far cry to the 1962 constitution. I argued then as a young campaigner, and you guys, you think campaigning is not cool. By them, you wouldn't say I'm not cool, man. So young Ugandans wake up, you know. So we argued against this because we're saying it was a waste of republic resources and it was a diversion, and that the constitutional so-called making process at the time, particularly was something founded in huge amount of error. It was founded in error because it's only the NRA constitution, which was founded and promulgated by a constitutional assembly that was full of 10 soldiers and no official representation from political parties, because at the time political parties were banned, and political parties had been banned for 10 years, leading to the 1995 promulgation, lest you forget. So this is some of the contextual background, and that's why I actually enjoyed it. And today, Charles, I want to thank you because the submissions you made immediately after mine, I thought young Edgar here had rushed me up a bit, but then we went into the details, some of the formation, some of the contextual background about the separation of power, the context of the legislature. This conversation is important. That's why I like creating time to be able to be here. Ugandans need to hear and have this conversation. You know, we've been taken for a ride for such a huge time, but back into this, what do you do? I genuinely believe that Museveni serves Western interests predominantly, and he continues to serve now Western and Eastern interests, predominantly non-Ugandan interests. Museveni's interest in this country is not there, except to the extent that it serves his selfish interests. And so for Ugandans who think that Museveni will one time wake up and say, Bambi, okay, now I give it to you guys, it seemingly may not necessarily happen. But worse, if only he was ruling Uganda like Kagame rules Rwanda, where you think there's a sense of, no, Ugandans don't go there, or no, you, my friends, the funny other friends outside Uganda, you know, we've shared the gold a bit, but stop there. This one is going too fast for our people. There is no evidence, like what Dennis says. There is absolutely no evidence.
Yes, sir.
All we just need to do, I've forgotten your question now, all we just need to do is to mobilize. All we need to do is to organize as Ugandans. And to do so brings us to the beginning of the conversation. We need to begin to review our affiliations to political parties and organizations, and particularly to those Ugandans, which is a bit unfortunate thing. Most Ugandans still don't belong to and associate actively with existing political parties. I think you need to do more. Ugandans need to do a lot more to engage with political parties, and most Ugandans need to begin to engage political parties and begin to critique their leaders and begin to relate more with the leaders whose positions are consistent with their values. But whatever the case, Ugandans need to begin putting pressure on political leaders to make sure that political leaders are real. Of course, Charles will tell you that actually 50% of the existing leaders are quote fake. We
also don't know
which is part of the problem. But anyway, whatever happens, in other words, it's basically meaning devil's advocate. Whether we go back to what the Dennises are trying to do or not, Ugandans need to genuinely agitate much more politically. You ask about what do we do about Mr. Museveni. I genuinely think that when the Chikubo demonstrations started, it was an era for the so-called Kampala corporates. They call themselves terrible, very misleading thing, corporates, to clap and to begin to become critics, assessors, to write mini reports about which way it's going to go. No. The fact that this thing started in Chikubo, it's rather cheek for the Kampala elites, for who pay 2 million shillings taxes, some of them, or indeed 1 million shillings taxes in a month, and they don't know where it's going, To think that the Chikubo thing was about those women that the NRA guys like to beat up on Kuma Road. No, this thing was really, and it's really very much about the citizens. Meaning, people need to come up and begin to challenge in terms of the service deliveries, in terms of the taxations, in terms of the jobs, and in terms of what we're able to do with the issues raised by Charles. You know, when the sanction things came, is it about Anita Mongi and Nandutu and Kitutu? No, it's a fundamental thing. And yes, because these guys stole from the vulnerable, says the British Foreign Office. Oh, I walked that Foreign Office. Oh, I walked them, and one time it should be in my memoirs. I met a Foreign Office official who was like a little boy, was instructing me about, the view of Uganda. So, but it was important because at the time it was standard policy to embellish Mr. Museveni and to concentrate on him. So, point is, people who stole are not those three. Those three have got bosses. Those three actually includes Anita Mom, who continues to serve as a Speaker of the National Assembly. And in any case, by the way, sanctioning a Speaker is usually something which is very unusual globally. But the fact that it's actually she's sanctioned, because the Speaker really is possibly one of the most, one of the most revered positions in government. Point is, just quickly, Ugandans need to begin to demand directly from Mr. Museveni and to focus on Mr. Museveni as the head of the snake, but really in this case, the head of the rotten fish is Mr. Museveni. Okay. How are we able to mobilize and organize politically and through civil society organizations to make sure that Mr. Museveni's regime collapses, but collapses without bloodshed, God willing, hopefully, but collapses in the hands of men and women who hold this country dear, who want to reclaim the Republic of Uganda for their children and children's children. Okay. That is the challenge.
Okay. Mr. Kazooba, let me come to you. You hinted as you were starting the Western powers coming to just check and address sanctions on some people. But he also paints up another picture of these Western powers have always been pro-Museveni. So do you think Ugandans can rely on the Western powers in terms of checking the imbalance of power in this country?
Do you really think you can become president of this country without the endorsement of the British? Do you really think that would happen? I've seen so many commentators argue sovereignty. For heaven's sake, we are in a globalized world. The sovereignty of Uganda is relative. We are sovereign probably to about 40%. The constitution, this constitution here, these are foreign laws, copied from foreign customs.
That's true.
So the traditions of the British and other Europeans are what are governing us today.
You adapted them.
So what sovereignty are we talking about? There is the international law. Today you cannot run away from the international law. It's totally impossible. So sovereignty is relative. It is higher for the stronger states in the global system. And it's lower for the weaker states in the global system. There is today what they call responsibility to protect under the UN. Foreign intervention can be done if, for instance, you have failed as a government to protect the human rights of your people. They will intervene here. So are you going to argue me I'm sovereign, you will not come? It doesn't make sense today in a globalized world. Now, that side, yes, and Mr. Ochieno is right, that although he has put it crudely, that President Museveni is an agent of foreigners. He appears like a spy for... The truth of the matter is...
I quote Dr. Bote from my lawyers.
The truth of the matter is that President Museveni has been implementing, and is still implementing, what they call liberalism. Now, liberalism is the source of democracy, the source of capitalism, the source of globalization. Yes?
Yes, sir.
However, he has not perfected it. Because if he had perfected the implementation, it would have benefited most people. For instance, competition for power, there should be fair ground, that anybody can compete for power.
Yes.
Now, to that extent, the British are with him. The Americans are with him because they believe that democratic states do not usually go to war. They are usually stable countries. They can only go to war if they are fighting undemocratic states. And internally, there are very few chances for instability if a country is democratic. Now, these Americans, the British, pursue democracy at a global level so that stable states can open their markets for their products. They can do business with them. You can't do business with North Korea.
Yeah.
You can't do business with today Russia. Yes, because of that volatility and violence. It's not good for business.
Exactly.
So, President Museveni has been implementing that. And me, in my thinking, I think that is why the West has not wanted him out of the system. Because I think they're not yet sure of another person that can do what they want to be done. Because purely it is their system. And for anybody to even argue about sovereignty, it is a lie. Now, the sanctions, I highly believe that the executive was aware of the sanctions. I highly believe that the British alerted the executive that the speaker and these two ministers were going to be sanctioned. And there was an endorsement. You know, you should study the behavior of institutions and people. You saw quarrels in the parliament that the executive was dragging its feet in condemning the sanctions. But I'm also aware that there was a foreign investigation on corruption in the parliament before the noise was made in the public. Actually, it is much possible that the leaks could have emanated from that investigation. And those foreign investigators shared their report with the president. So the president knew.
Yeah, there has been a school of thought like that the president knew everything.
The
that was
president, our president here called President Museveni, plays a Machiavelli politics. Huh? He'll give you power, you strangle yourself.
It's like a rope.
And he's done. He's done with you. So today, and really it is unfortunate for my friend Nandutu. I think she has a bad omen. You have just come off the streets. You are beginning to enjoy. People, they throw you off the table. And then they even want to strangle you. I mean, it's very bad for
So
her.
what you're trying to say is that the Western powers are pro-Museveni. It's not yet his time out.
Western powers will agree with anybody as long as that person promotes their interests, that person implements their systems.
Okay. But what would you comment about this anti-homosexuality act that we now have? Because that is contradictory.
Have you wondered why Kadaga was never sanctioned? Why have they sanctioned this one? even when the case is still in the court, because I hear the Mwendas might appear.
They say they will appear.
Yes. So why sanction Among and they didn't sanction Kadag? What was the difference?
You tell me.
There is something. There is a detail about her.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Let me come to Dennis. Dennis, as we come to the end of this particular program, let's talk about these Western powers. They've painted a picture that these Western powers seem like they are not yet serious in terms of checking this imbalance in government. What is your take on these? Because, in fact, your former leader of the People Power, Kyagulanyi Ssentamu, has been at the helm of saying he's a foreign agent working for foreigners. And these gentlemen also say that I think it's not about him alone. There is also another one who's working for foreigners.
I'm not a fan of foreigners. I'm not a fan of the West because, to the best of my knowledge, their interests are permanent, and they'll always move with somebody who helps them facilitate their interests. And I can assure you, even after Museveni, they can get another person who will facilitate their interests, even before Museveni. So it's not about the West. The issues of Uganda, I think, are for Ugandans. I'm not one of the people who think that you need the West to change the status quo. I think Ugandans can get rid of it.
He says without the West you can't.
I respectfully, because he built his case. He has a reason. He has how he built his case. When you listen to him, you will arrive to the same conclusion. I don't want to listen to him. I have a different perspective of mine.
Okay.
Because I believe that Ugandans, if they gained their own strength and acknowledge their own power, they could redeem the country from Museveni or any government, and they take power in their own hands. Case in point is, we had a ruthless leader in Uganda. He told them to go and hang, all of them. He was here. When he was just, of course they will plan against you. They will try to fight you, and somehow they will fund your opponents, but empower them to come and
do it themselves
and take over you and run over you. But them coming and enforcing, most times I don't belong to the school of thought who think that foreign agents can take over the government. What I'm saying in the West is, personally, I also think, I don't think it's about this theory, as they said, the speaker. I largely believe, personally, it's my own opinion, that it was about the anti-homosexuality bill, according to me. Why? You see, the West are Museveni's friends. He has served their interests, and Museveni has been a very smart leader that now he's playing China against the US. He has Chinese on this hand, so he has them on tenterhooks. Now they wonder, even how to deal with Museveni, they don't know. The first person to be sanctioned in Uganda would be Museveni.
Exactly.
But they fear him. Even the West fears Museveni. That's how tough he is.
It's not about fear.
I'm telling you, if they want to put sanctions on Museveni, he's the first person.
Because they have always sanctioned everybody around
after
him,
40
apart
years.
from him.
You mean you can't find a thing after 40 years of sanctioning Museveni? But he has played his cards. Now, all these people, the speaker, you said we had Kadaga, we had before Kadaga there was another speaker, another speaker. All these people are what? Are dispensable. They can go. So what you're sanctioning is nothing. Sanctioning Anita Among, a mere speaker, who just not so long ago was with us in the opposition. And he just joined the government, not even 10 years. It does not change anything. What will it heal? Now for them, they were looking for a reason. Because someone told them that the parliament of Uganda was so bad. Because if you saw the publicity of the anti-homosexuality act when it was passed in Kampala, the international media, how it was aired, you would think the world is going to fall. If you watch CNN and watch the BBC and watch all the international media and juxtapose the Ugandan media, here was everything was normal. Nothing had happened here. But internationally, you would think something was a catastrophe was in Uganda. So it was overhyped and something had to come. So when they found a reason to make a statement, I think they made a statement, an idle one, to my understanding, because sanctioning Anita Among really, I don't think it is.
It's not about Ugandans, really.
It's not really about Ugandans. The West are just trying to either justify to somebody those people, because the problem of Uganda, of the world, would be a dictator of 40 years in the names of Yoweri Kaguta Museveni. If the West were serious, the first person to be sanctioned would be the president of Uganda. Because if all these ministers, they are his ministers, even the laws, he's the one who assents the law. To become a law, he must ascend. So, all these people he appoints, personally, I believe that Ugandans have a chance to get rid of the leader they don't want by themselves.
Okay.
Of course, you might need support. You need support from everywhere. Of course, people are poor. They will need resources here and there that the West can give. Unfortunately, now, because they help the government, some of these things you cannot now operate well, because now if you are backing Museveni, because Museveni, the platforms Museveni gets when he goes abroad, even my former leader Bobby Wine can never
It's
get.
a rock and
Bobby Wine goes to the film festivals.
Let me just
Bobby Wine,
as
Bobby Wine attends film festivals, Museveni will be in the White House with the president. So
give us
you don't think that president, you don't think that president has the will or understands. You don't think a Western president understands the sorrows of Ugandans and how badly we want to get rid of the dictator. So my conclusion, as I wind up, mine is on Ugandans. I and many of us believe that we are under capture. And the solution is one, as I earlier said, that we must find a way of working together. We must reawaken the spirit of the people power movement. Me, I believe in the people power movement. The people power that does not have a small cocoon of a political party, SDP, DP, FDC, NUP, no. A people power that everybody belongs. That you come, the one that Comrade Ochieno, when he heard about it, believed in the idea. We are non-partisan. We don't believe in any tribe, any religion. All of us Ugandans, the marginalized Ugandans, coming together and form an umbrella. United, we put aside all the small, petty things. That is the only way you can change this country.
Okay.
I thank you.
Charles Kazooba, you can respond to him and also give us your parting shots in 2 minutes.
No, what I wanted to add is just a small detail. You cannot diagnose Uganda's situation independent of the geopolitics. Now, Sudan is burning, South Sudan is burning, Ethiopia is burning. The entire Horn of Africa. Now you come here, DRC is the same. Burundi, you're not sure. When you look at the entire region, one man has been doing the shuttle diplomacy to stabilize the region. Of course, on behalf of the West. That is President Museveni. So, getting rid of him now can actually affect the interests of the West in the entire region. I think they look at that and they take considerations. That's why they will not rush into sanctioning him, but they send warnings. You man, you are hobnobbing with these Chinese, be careful. You see how we are beginning to handle your people. So he understands, but he also sends warnings. He says, You see now I have NAM behind me, the non-aligned movement, so we should be careful how we engage. So it is really international politics that they are playing, but you must be able to place them together. Our situation internally and the international politics, because they move hand in hand.
Mr. Kazooba, your parting shots.
Now, my parting shots, of course, it is very much possible, of course, to remove M7 through whatever means, like he's saying. But me, I'm from the school of thought that strongly believes President M7's system has contracted because of the internal contradictions, and it is going to voluntarily collapse on its own. So our efforts as a country should be the post-M7 era. What is our thinking? What is our planning? As a country, what do we want? So that's my view.
Okay. Last but definitely not least, Mr. Ochieno, your parting shot, sir.
My parting shot was 1 minute, and the 1 minute is this, that whatever's happening is geopolitical, as rightly said. Whatever's happening about the sanctions is also true that it's not an isolated incident. We don't have the time to delve into the track. I wish we did. Many of them, including the fact that Museveni is the typical Nyampala. The geopolitical thing is not because Mr. Museveni is the stabilizer. The geopolitical thing is because Museveni has been the cause of the problem. Museveni created Congo ×2, created Rwanda, created Burundi. In Somalia, he took Ugandans to go and die on behalf of Anglo-America. It's not an African Union thing. We'll say that again and again and again. And of course, some of the other things happening at the other ends of Africa. You know his attempts and some of the allegations in Kenya. So Museveni has been the troublemaker, actually, in this region, rather than the peacemaker. But it's true that because he's the troublemaker, because of, on behalf of Anglo-America and their power, you know, he sort of wields some of those interests. I think one of the things which is actually happening at the moment is the question about can we have a leader without the mandate of the West? No, we can't. You young Ugandans, mobilize in your millions, organize in your millions, and present the view that you not only have an alternative, but you reject Mr. Museveni. It happens around the world. But it's obviously true that in as long as the West, you know, that's the terrible thing about this case, in as long as they know that they can sustain their interest, it could be through a brutal dictator like Museveni's crude dictatorship, and one that kills money and kills gold and kills malaria drugs and kills HIV drugs, you know, before they even came to kill the Mabati from Karamojo. Yes, they'll just watch and clap for them.
Okay.
As soon as the West realizes that you've got the mandate, the power of the people, they'll rally behind you. Okay. When UPC came to power in 1962, it's always been suggested that Britain supported us. Not necessarily. We're actually known to be radically left. You know, but in 1962, because we had the mandate, they had to find a way, I'm concluding, find a way of work with us. They created Idi Amin. You know, Amin rebuffed them. In 1980, very important, they brought in Yusuf Lule because they didn't want UPC because they thought they were radically progressive left. But once we won the government, they worked with us. Okay. They worked with it, they brought in the Musevenis. It is possible that when we say no, these guys will work with us, in as long as they realize that we're not preparing to break down Washington or indeed London. You know, so Ugandans, the power belongs to you. We need to mobilize and organize and claim our power and work strategically to build a Uganda and an Africa which is post the mess that we have at the moment for our children's children, considering the crisis of global change, of climate change.
Okay, thank you so much, Joseph. Thank you, Charles. Thank you, Dennis. And of course, thank you to our viewers. It's exactly 9 p.m. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll see you guys tomorrow morning at exactly 8 a.m. The Mighty Drive returns. My name is Edgar Mathew Karuhanga. On behalf of Digitalk TV, may God bless you and God bless Uganda.
The Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.